Colorado Territory, 1858. The waters of Eagle Creek shimmered in the dying sunlight, rippling gold and amber across the rocky streambed. 12-year-old Mae Calder knelt at its edge, her small hands cupped to drink the cold mountain water. Her father's military detachment had set up camp a quarter-mile back, yet she had slipped away, drawn by the sound of rushing water and the promise of solitude. Silas Calder had brought her west after her mother's passing, unable to endure the empty halls of their Boston home. "You'll be safer with me than any relatives," he had said, though Mae sometimes wondered if it was he who could not bear the silence. Colonel Calder ruled Fort Collins with an iron hand, determined to bring order to what he called the untamed wilderness. Mae splashed water on her face, washing away the dust of the day's journey. That's when she sensed it, a presence, neither threatening nor hostile, yet watchful. Slowly she lifted her eyes. Across the narrow creek a boy stood, perhaps a year older than herself, an Apache boy. His dark eyes held a mixture of curiosity and caution. Neither spoke, neither moved. Mae had heard her father's men speak of the Apache as cruel and merciless, but the boy before her seemed nothing of the sort. His attire was simple, his posture proud. Finally he moved, kneeling at the creek's edge to mirror her own position. The water ran between them, a line dividing and connecting at once. "I'm Mae," she said softly, though she doubted he understood her words. The boy tilted his head, studying her fair skin and the soft waves of her hair. Then, to her surprise, he answered in careful, accented English, "Taro." "It means friend to all," he added after a moment. Mae's lips curved into a smile despite herself. "Do you live nearby?" Taro nodded toward the mountains. "My people camp in the shadow of the high peaks." He hesitated. "Your people, they are soldiers." It was not a question yet. Mae nodded. "My father is their leader." Something flickered in Taro's eyes, understanding perhaps, or a weary caution. He should have gone then. Both children knew discovery would be dangerous, yet neither moved. Taro reached into a small pouch at his waist and withdrew something, extending his hand across the creek. A small stone rested in his palm, polished smooth, with streaks of red and gold. "For courage," he said simply. Mae hesitated only a moment before reaching out. Their fingertips brushed as she accepted the stone, and an unspoken current passed between them. A connection, a recognition, something ancient and unnamed. Her eyes widened as they met his. He had felt it too. A distant voice called her name, her father's aide searching. "I must go," she whispered. Taro nodded once, then melted silently into the shadows of the pines. Mae clutched the stone to her palm, feeling its warmth, before slipping it into her dress pocket. Only then did she answer the calls, making her way back to camp. That night, lying in her tent, she held the stone to her heart, replaying the encounter. She did not understand the magic of the creek. Yet she knew with certainty she would see Taro again. 7 years later, Mae stood at the window of her father's home on the edge of Fort Collins, watching the sun dip behind the mountains. At 19, she had grown into a young woman of quiet strength. Years in the West had tanned her skin and brought golden highlights to her hair, though her green eyes still gleamed vividly. Mae, her father's voice called from his study. "Come in here, please." She sighed, anticipating the lecture. Another reminder of her duties, another insistence to marry suitably. Since her 18th birthday, Silas Calder had been increasingly obsessed with seeing her settled. "Yes, father," she replied, entering the book-lined study where he sat behind his massive oak desk. Colonel Calder had aged. Steel gray now replaced the dark hair of years past. His face etched with the marks of frontier life and conflicts with native tribes. "Captain Flint Rourke will join us for dinner tomorrow evening," he said without preamble. "I expect you to be gracious." Mae held a neutral expression. "Of course. He's a fine officer, distinguished in campaigns against the Cheyenne, promoted to major by year's end." "Is that all that matters to you, father?" "Military rank." Colonel Calder's eyes narrowed. What should matter more, he can provide for you, protect you. In this territory that was no small consideration. Mae turned again to the window, gazing toward Eagle Peak. The place where she had met Taro all those years ago, where she still met him whenever she could steal away unnoticed. I'm not afraid of this land, she said quietly. You should be her father, replied, voice hard. Her father's voice was hard. The Apache have been raiding settlements to the south. 3 families murdered just last month. Not all Apache are raiders, Mae said before she could stop herself. Colonel Calder rose from his desk, his gaze sharp. What would you know of it? You've been sheltered here at the fort. If only he knew. Mae bit her tongue to hold back a reply. For 7 long years she had kept her secret. For 7 years she and Taro had met in the shadows, first as curious children, then as friends, and now as something far more. Something she dared not name aloud. I'll wear my blue dress tomorrow, she said, shifting the subject. Will that be suitable? Her father nodded, momentarily appeased. Captain Flint Rourke will appreciate it. He had remarked on how becoming it had looked at the officers' ball last month. Mae nodded and excused herself, retreating to her room. Once alone, she opened the drawer of her bedside table and drew out the stone Taro had given her. Its surface was worn smooth from years of her fingers tracing its curves. She had promised to meet him tonight at their usual spot by Eagle Creek. As darkness fell, she waited until the house had settled into quiet. Her father retired early, exhausted from a day of administration. When his snores echoed down the hall, Mae draped a dark shawl over her shoulders and eased out the window. She knew the path by heart, could have walked it blindfolded. The night was cool, stars scattered like diamond dust across the sky. An owl called somewhere in the distance. Mae moved swiftly, her heart hammering with each step that drew her closer to him. The clearing by Eagle Creek was their sanctuary. Taro was already there, a silent figure bathed in moonlight. At 20, he had grown tall and strong, his face bearing the dignified features of his people. He wore the traditional garb of his people, though Mae knew he also had settler clothes for times he needed to move unseen among white settlements. I feared you wouldn't come, he said softly as she approached. I'll always come, she replied, stepping into his embrace. His arms circled her, strong yet gentle. Mae rested her head against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. These stolen moments were precious and increasingly dangerous. Hostility between the settlers and the Apache had only intensified over the years. My father is trying to marry me off, she murmured against the rough fabric of his shirt to Flint Rourke. Taro's body tensed slightly, but his voice remained calm. The one with the scar across his chin who led the attack on the Cheyenne village. Mae nodded. He's coming to dinner tomorrow. Taro stepped back just enough to hold her gaze. His hand rose to cup her cheek. And what will you do? Refuse him, of course. She leaned into his touch. I belong with you. I have since that first day at the creek. His words lingered between them, carrying all the meaning of years together. They had spent countless hours side by side, Taro teaching her the ways of his people, Mae sharing the books and ideas from beyond the mountains. They had learned each other's languages, traded stories and dreams, watched the seasons turn from their hidden places of safety, and gradually, inevitably, they had fallen in love. My people also wish me to marry, Taro said quietly. Nyla, the daughter of a respected elder. Mae felt a pang of jealousy, though she knew she had no right. Is she beautiful? A faint ghost of a smile touched Taro's lips. She is considered so. And do you care for her? I respect her. His hand moved from her cheek to tuck a strand of hair behind it. But my heart has belonged to you since I was 13, Mae. It cannot be given twice. She closed her eyes, overwhelmed by the truth of his words. When she opened them again, determination had replaced uncertainty. We could leave, she whispered. Go north to Canada or south to Mexico, anywhere we could be together. Taro's expression grew serious. and leave our families, our peoples, if that's what it takes. He paused for a long moment, weighing her words. Finally, he said, "There's a place my grandfather showed me high in the mountains, a hidden valley where the rivers meet. If we must run, that's where I would take you." Mae lifted her face to his. Promise me that if they try to separate us, we'll go there." "I promise," he said, sealing it with a kiss. Their lips met gently at first, then with mounting urgency. Mae wrapped her arms around his neck, pressing close as if she could merge with him entirely. His hands spanned her waist, steady and sure. In that instant, the barriers imposed by society, race, culture, history, dissolved into nothingness. They were simply two souls recognizing each other against all odds. When they finally parted, breathless, Mae rested her forehead against his. "I should go back before I am missed." Taro nodded, making no move to release her. 2 nights from now, same time." "Yes," she promised. "I'll be here." He pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead before letting her go. "Keep the stone close until then." "I always do." Mae reluctantly stepped back, feeling the cold seep into her skin where Taro's warmth had lingered. She turned to leave, then glanced once more. Taro stood motionless in the moonlight, his eyes never leaving hers. In that instant, she knew beyond any doubt that whatever came, they would face it together. Neither noticed the figure watching from the shadowed pines, nor heard the quiet shuffle of boots through the underbrush. Captain Flint Rourke prided himself on discipline and control. 11 years in the U.S. Army had taught him to keep a calm exterior no matter the circumstance. That training kept his expression measured as he sat across from Mae Calder at dinner the following evening, though rage simmered beneath the surface. "The venison is excellent, Colonel," he said, slicing another piece with precision. "Your cook has outdone herself." Vera had come west from Boston. The fort couldn't run smoothly without her. Mae said nothing, nudging food around her plate without much eating. Her blue dress gleamed as promised hair, pinned in an elegant knot at the nape of her neck. She was beautiful, Rourke thought, and deceiving. He had followed her the previous night, curiosity his excuse. When she had slipped away from the fort, he assumed she was meeting a young lieutenant. Scandalous enough, but manageable. What he had witnessed instead was far worse, an Apache. She had been embracing an Apache man, kissing him. The memory made Rourke's hand tighten around his knife. He had nearly drawn his pistol on the spot, but caution prevailed. "Better to plan to use this knowledge strategically," Mae Colonel Calder said sharply. "Captain Rourke asked you a question." She looked up, startled. "I'm sorry, my thoughts were elsewhere." Clearly her father's disapproval cut through her. The captain asked about her interest in the new lending library in town. "Oh yes, it's quite nice. They had received a shipment from Chicago last month." Rourke smiled thinly. "I've always believed a well-read woman makes a fine companion," he said, "though of course limits exist for what is suitable reading for ladies." Mae's eyes flashed. "And who determines these limits, Captain?" she asked sharply. "Men who fear educated women might begin to think for themselves." Colonel Calder's voice cracked like a whip. Rourke raised a hand. "No, it's quite all right, Colonel. I appreciate Miss Calder's spirit now." He returned his gaze to Mae. "I only meant that some books might lead a young woman astray. Ideas about equality between races, for example. Dangerous notions that contradict the natural order." Mae's face paled slightly, though her voice remained steady. "Perhaps the natural order isn't as divinely ordained as some would have us believe." A tense silence fell over the table. Colonel Calder cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should move to the sitting room for coffee." "An excellent suggestion," Rourke agreed, rising and offering his arm. Mae had no choice but to take it, her fingers brushing his sleeve lightly. As they left the dining room, Rourke leaned slightly closer. "I know where you were last night," he murmured low enough for only her to hear. "And with whom?" Mae stumbled slightly, eyes darting to his. What she saw chilled her blood knowledge. "Calculation. Threat," she whispered. "I don't know what you mean. I think you do." His smile never reached his eyes. We'll discuss it later when we have more privacy. The evening passed in a blur. Mae poured coffee, answered questions automatically, played the piano when prompted, all while her mind raced with panic. Rourke knew. Somehow he knew about Taro, and he would use that knowledge. When Rourke finally took his leave, he kissed her hand, fingers pressing painfully into hers. "Until tomorrow, Miss Calder. I look forward to our ride." "Ride," she echoed. "Yes," her father interjected. "I've given Captain Rourke permission to escort you tomorrow afternoon. The weather promises to be fair." Mae wanted to refuse to feign illness, but Rourke's warning look stopped her. How thoughtful, she managed. After the captain departed and her father retired with a glass of brandy, Mae fled to her room. She paced, mind whirling. She needed to warn Taro. They had to leave. Tonight, before Rourke could act on what he knew. She changed quickly into her simplest dress, packed essentials into a small bag, and penned a brief note to her father. It would break his heart, but she had no choice. She couldn't bear the thought of Taro in danger because of her. Just as she was about to slip out the window, a knock sounded at her bedroom door. "Mae," her father's voice. "May I come in?" She hurriedly shoved the small bag beneath her bed. "Yes, father." Silas Calder entered, still holding his brandy glass. His expression was unreadable as he closed the door behind him. "Captain Flint Rourke has asked for your hand in marriage." Mae's heart sank. "Father, I told him I would discuss it with you, but I see no impediment to the match." He took a deliberate sip of brandy. "He's a fine officer with excellent prospects. I don't love him." The colonel waved his hand dismissively. "Love comes with time and respect. My marriage to your mother began as one of convenience, yet it grew into deep affection." "This is different," Mae insisted. "I cannot marry Captain Rourke. I won't." Her father studied her closely. "There's someone else." It wasn't a question. Mae said nothing. Her silence spoke volumes. Silas Calder exhaled heavily. "Who is he?" "One of the young lieutenants, perhaps Chambers. He's been making eyes at you for months." "No," Mae said softly. "No one you would approve of." Her father's expression hardened. "And what does that mean?" Mae squared her shoulders. "It means I've made my choice, father, and it isn't Captain Rourke." For a long moment Silas Calder said nothing. Then he drained his glass and set it down on her dresser with a sharp click. "You're upset. We'll discuss this in the morning, after you've had time to reconsider." "I won't change my mind. We shall see." He moved toward the door, pausing. "I've given orders that no one is to leave the fort tonight without my express permission for your own safety." The door closed behind him with finality. Mae sank onto her bed, mind racing. Her father's words were clear. She was effectively a prisoner. She could not warn Taro. She could not run. There was nothing to do but wait for tomorrow's confrontation with Rourke. She held Taro's stone tightly in her palm. Its familiar contours offered little comfort now. Whatever happened tomorrow, she knew with grim certainty her life was about to change forever. The next morning dawned bright and clear, mocking her inner turmoil. She dressed mechanically in her riding habit, dark green wool that complemented her coloring. Her maid Lona chattered as she arranged Mae's hair, oblivious to her mistress's distress. "Captain Rourke is such a handsome man," Lona said, securing a pin. "And so distinguished that scar makes him look like a hero from a storybook." Mae said nothing. To her, the scar that bisected Rourke's chin was a mark of cruelty, not valor. She had overheard him boasting once about receiving it, fighting Cheyenne warriors, women and children among them. At precisely 2 o'clock he arrived to escort her on their ride. Mae descended the stairs with leaden feet. Her father stood in the foyer, beaming at the picture they made, the dashing officer and the colonel's daughter, a perfect match in the eyes of frontier society. "Don't stay out too long," Silas Calder cautioned. "There have been reports of Apache in the area." Rourke's smile was cold. "I assure you, sir." I'm more than capable of handling any Apache we might encounter." They rode out from the Fort Mae on her dappled mare Rourke on a large bay gelding. He led them along the main road for a time until they were well out of sight of the fort. Then he abruptly turned onto a narrower trail winding toward the foothills. "Where are we going?" Mae asked, the first words since departure. "Somewhere we can talk privately." Rourke said, his tone casual, almost as if discussing the weather. "About your Apache lover?" Mae's hands tightened on the reins. "I don't know what you mean. Please, Miss Calder, let's not insult each other's intelligence." He guided his horse closer to hers. "I saw you 2 nights ago, by the creek, a most touching reunion." Mae said nothing mind-racing. Could she turn now and outrun him back to the fort? No. His gelding was faster, stronger. And what would be the point, returning to her father who would only lock her away more securely? "What do you want?" she asked finally. Rourke smiled. "The same thing I've always wanted, you as my wife. Never." "Consider the alternatives, my dear," his voice hardened. "If I tell your father what I saw, he'll have your Apache friend hunted and hanged, and you'll be sent east in disgrace, probably, to some dreary aunt who'll keep you locked away until you're old and gray." Mae felt ill. Why would you want to marry someone who despises you because you are Colonel Calder's daughter? Because with his backing I'll make general before I'm 40. Rourke's face remained impassive. "And because you're beautiful, well-bred, and will make an excellent hostess as I rise through the ranks, I'll run away. To where, with whom?" "You're savage," he laughed softly. "I've already dispatched men to find his camp. By nightfall he'll be dead or in chains." Mae's blood ran cold. "You're lying." And my Rourke raised an eyebrow. Jace Harper and 6 men rode out at dawn. Efficient, methodical. Harper carried a personal grudge against the Apache after what had happened to his brother at San Carlos. Mae's mind raced. She had to warn Taro somehow. His people's camp was hidden in the mountains. But determined soldiers might find it. Or worse, they might find Taro alone, making his way to their secret meeting. "If you harm him," she said, voice low and fierce, "I will never forgive you. I will make every day of our marriage a living hell." Rourke's expression didn't change. "You'll learn to accept your situation as women always do, and in time you might even come to appreciate me. I can be quite persuasive." The threat in his words was unmistakable. Mae straightened in her saddle, summoning every ounce of courage. "Take me back to the fort. Now." "Not yet. First you'll give me your answer." Rourke moved his horse directly in front of hers, blocking her path. "Will you marry me willingly, or shall I tell your father about your Apache?" Mae stared, hatred burning in her eyes. "If I agree, will you call off your men? Leave Taro alone." Something flickered in Rourke's expression. "Taro, is that his name?" He smiled thinly. "How touching that you're on such intimate terms." "Answer me," Mae demanded. "Will you leave him alone if I agree to marry you?" Rourke considered this. "I suppose I could recall Jace Harper as a wedding gift to my bride." She didn't believe him for a moment, but what choice did she have? She needed time. Time to warn Taro, time to formulate a plan. "Very well," she said the words, tasting like ashes in her mouth. "I'll marry you." Rourke's smile was triumphant. "I knew you'd be sensible." He reached into his coat pocket and produced a small velvet box. "I came prepared, you see." He opened it to reveal a gold ring with a single diamond. It was beautiful, expensive, and to Mae it represented a prison more confining than any cell. "Your hand, my dear," Rourke prompted when she made no move to accept it. Reluctantly, Mae extended her left hand. He took it in his own, his touch crawling across her skin as he slid the ring onto her finger. It felt heavy. "Wrong. Now," he said, "let's return to the fort and share our happy news with your father." As they turned their horses toward the road, Mae's mind was already racing. She would find a way to get word to Taro. They would meet tonight in their secret place and then run. to the hidden valley he had spoken of, or beyond somewhere Rourke and her father could never find them. She touched the stone in her pocket, drawing strength from it. This was not the end. It was merely another obstacle to overcome. What she didn't know was that fate had already set other events in motion. Jace Harper had never considered himself cruel, determined, yes, efficient, certainly, but not cruel. Yet as he led his men through the foothills, tracking signs of Apache movement, a darkness stirred within him he barely recognized. The memory of his younger brother's mutilated body, found after the San Carlos massacre, propelled him forward like a force of nature. Jacob had been just 20, newly assigned to the Arizona Territory, when Apache raiders struck his patrol. Sir Boone whispered softly, pointing to the ground. Tracks. Fresh. Harper dismounted to examine them. One rider moving fast. He looked ahead to the rocky terrain. He's heading for those cliffs. Should we split up? Cover more ground, Trace asked. Harper shook his head. No. We stay together. If we find their camp, we'll need every man. What Rourke had told him seemed far-fetched, the colonel's daughter, involved with an Apache warrior. Yet Harper had learned not to question orders, only to execute them. Find the Apache camp, locate a warrior named Taro, bring him in alive if possible, dead if necessary. They continued their pursuit, the tracks leading higher into the mountains. The air grew cooler, pine shadows stretching long across their path. Harper felt eyes on them, though he saw no one. The Apache were masters of concealment. Harper knew they could be anywhere even now. Stay sharp, he warned his men. Check your weapons. The tracks vanished as they reached a rocky plateau. The hard ground revealed no prints. Harper cursed under his breath. We've lost him, Boone said. No, Harper replied, scanning the terrain. He's leading us somewhere or away from somewhere. He pointed to a narrow gap between two rock formations. That way, it's the only logical path. They advanced cautiously, rifles ready. The gap opened onto a small valley bisected by a swift stream. At first glance, it seemed empty. Then Harper saw it, a thin wisp of smoke, rising behind a stand of cottonwoods. He signaled his men to spread out silently. Heart pounding, Harper moved forward, rifle raised. He expected to find a small camp, maybe a band of hunters. Instead, he found a single teepee beside the stream, a cooking fire smoldering nearby. A woman stood at the water's edge, filling a clay pot. She wore traditional Apache dress, her long black hair hanging in a single braid down her back. Harper hesitated. This wasn't the war party he anticipated, just one woman alone. Then she turned, sensing them, and Harper saw her face. Young, beautiful eyes widening in fear as she took in the soldiers emerging from the trees. The pot slipped from her hands, shattering on the rocks, and she reached for something at her waist. A knife, Harper realized too late. Hold, he shouted. But Boone had already fired. The shot echoed across the valley. The woman staggered back, shock on her face as crimson bloomed across her dress. She fell to her knees, then toppled into the shallow stream. God damn it, Boone. Harper barked, spinning on the young soldier. I didn't give the order to fire. Boone's face was pale. She had a weapon, sir. I didn't think at all. Harper splashed into the stream to reach her. He turned her over gently, knowing it was already too late. The bullet had struck her heart. Her eyes stared sightlessly at the sky, hands still clutching the small knife. Harper closed his eyes, fingertips brushing hers. May God forgive us, he murmured. The pounding of hooves drew his gaze upward. A rider approached at full gallop, an Apache warrior. On a painted horse face, a mask of fury and grief. Take cover, Harper shouted, pulling his pistol as he scrambled aside. The warrior ignored them, leapt from his horse in motion, rushing to the woman with a cry of anguish that needed no translation. Hold your fire, Harper ordered as the men raised rifles. Something about the scene felt profoundly wrong. This wasn't an enemy combatant. This was a man finding his bride or beloved slain. The warrior cradled her body, rocking gently, keening to the sky. His grief was raw, unbearably human. Harper felt shame wash over him. This was what war really looked like, not glory or honor, but this, a man holding his dead love in a stream running red with her blood. Sir Trace whispered urgently, "What are your orders?" Harper hesitated. His orders had been to find Taro the Apache, meeting with Mae Calder. Could this be him timing fit? But he had no way to know for certain. Before he could decide, the warrior gently laid the woman on the bank and stood. His eyes, now locked on the soldiers, burned with a hatred so pure it was almost beautiful. "Which one of you killed her?" he demanded, flawless English. The men exchanged shocked glances. Harper stepped forward. "A mistake. She was to be my wife," the warrior said, voice dangerously calm. "Tomorrow we would have joined before our people. Her name was Nyla." Harper felt sick. Nyla. Not Mae Calder. This wasn't Taro, but another Apache man, and they had just killed his bride-to-be. A terrible mistake. An unforgivable one, Harper whispered. "I'm sorry." Words felt hollow. "We can help you bury her properly." "Leave her to our ways," the warrior cut him off. "Then I will hunt each of you, one by one, until justice is done." Harper believed him. The cold certainty in the warrior's eyes left no room for doubt. "We're riding out," Jace Harper said to his men. "Mount up." Sir Trace began uneasy. "Our orders were never to gun down unarmed women," Harper snapped back. "Mount up. Now." As they rode away, Harper allowed himself one glance over his shoulder. Koda had returned to Nyla's side, lifting her gently from the water, gathering her to his chest with a tenderness that tore at something deep inside Harper. That image, blood in the creek grief, carved into a man's face, would follow him for the rest of his days. Mae Calder sat alone in her bedroom, the diamond ring heavy as iron on her finger, while she tried to finish the message she had begun for Taro. She needed to warn him, needed him to run for the mountains before Flint Rourke's men found him. But how could she get the message to him? A soft knock sent panic racing through her. She slid the letter beneath a book just as she said it. "Come in." Lona stepped inside carrying a small tray of tea. "Thought you might need this, miss." After all the celebrating, the engagement had been met with outrageous enthusiasm across the fort. Silas Calder had uncorked champagne from his private cellar, and officers had toasted the happy couple as though Mae were not dying inside. She had smiled mechanically through it all, offering polite nods, though her father had studied her with a wary suspicion, as if sensing her obedience wasn't real. "Thank you, Lona," Mae murmured, taking the tea. And then an idea sparked. "Lona, may I ask you for a favor? Something discreet." The maid tilted her head. "Of course, miss. I need—" She hesitated. "I need a note delivered. Quietly." Lona's brows rose. A note to whom Mae felt tears sting her eyes. Lona had been with her since childhood, closer to her than any aunt. If Mae could trust anyone, it was her. "I can't tell you who it's for," she whispered, "but it's important, more important than anything." Lona searched her face. "This is about Captain Rourke, isn't it?" "You don't want this marriage." Mae swallowed hard. "Please. I wouldn't ask if someone's life didn't depend on it." The maid's expression gentled. "Where must it go, miss? To Eagle Creek, at the big cottonwood. Leave it in the hollow at the base." Mae squeezed Lona's hands. "Tonight after dark. Can you do that?" Lona hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, Miss Mae, I can." Relief washed through her. After Lona left, Mae finished her note. "Danger. We've been found out. Flint Rourke sent soldiers after you. Meet me in the mountains tomorrow, at midnight our place. Bring only what you must. We must flee together. Always yours, Mae." She sealed it with wax and handed it over when Lona returned. That night, Mae watched from her window as Lona slipped quietly out the servant's door, the message hidden in her apron pocket. Later, she dreamt of gunfire rolling through the mountains. of Taro shouting her name as chains were thrown around him. She woke tangled in sheets, her palm clenched tight around Taro's stone until it left its mark in her skin. Morning brought Flint Rourke to the Calder home supposedly to discuss wedding plans, though Mae knew he merely wanted to ensure she hadn't run. His grin was wolfish as he escorted her toward breakfast. Lieutenant Harper returned late last night, Flint mentioned casually. Seems his mission fell short of expectations. Mae's heart soared with sudden hope. Oh yes, a regrettable scene, really. He tightened his grip on her arm. They ran into some Apache. Shots were fired. A woman died. Her breath caught. A woman, the bride-to-be of one of their warriors. Flint lowered his voice with deliberate cruelty. Not your Taro, unfortunately, but he'll be found soon enough. Mae felt the world tip under her feet. You're a monster, she whispered. I'm a soldier, Flint replied calmly. I do what needs doing. They reached the dining room. Come now, your father is eager to talk wedding dates. Through the long day that followed, Mae drifted as though trapped in a nightmare. Plans were laid, announcements made. The wedding would be in 2 weeks, just enough time for Flint to assume his new posting at Fort Laramie as second in command. You'll love Laramie, her father Silas Calder assured her, far more civilized than this lonely outpost. Mae said nothing. She felt only the crushing weight of time running out. Mae nodded mechanically, though none of it held meaning anymore. By this time tomorrow she would be gone, either fleeing toward a future with Taro or lying dead for daring to choose her own path. But she knew one thing, as surely as she knew her own name, she would never marry Flint Rourke. She would not bind her life to a man who spilled innocent blood to climb ranks and polish his pride. As night crept in, she prepared with steady, deliberate hands. She dressed in her plainest clothes, a brown skirt built for travel, a white blouse that wouldn't snag easily, sturdy leather boots with dust worn into the seams. A thick shawl wrapped across her shoulders to brace against the mountain winds. Into her small travel bag she tucked only what mattered, a spare dress, the money she had saved in secret, her mother's locket, and the small knife Silas Calder had once pressed into her hand with the words for protection. When the house finally fell silent, Mae climbed out the window, as she had done countless times before. The sky spread above her like dark velvet scattered with diamonds. She kept to the shadows along the fort's edge, her heartbeat hammering with fear and hope. Once she slipped past the sentries, she would take Eagle Creek north, following its winding path, straight to the hidden place where she and Taro had promised to meet. But as she neared the outer fence, a figure stepped from the darkness, blocking her escape. Going somewhere, Miss Calder Flint Rourke stood waiting, pistol lowered, but ready moonlight, carving sharp edges into his face. Cold fear sliced through her. How did you— Your loyal maid, he drawled, is not nearly as loyal as you believed. His smile twisted cruelly. She brought me your message. Quite sentimental, really. Always yours. Enough to make a man wonder just how far your affection for this Apache has gone. Rage struck her like lightning, hot, clean, unshakable. He's twice the man you are 100 times. Flint's face darkened. You choose an Apache over your own kind, my kind. Captain Mae shot back. Are those who still honor decency, not men who slaughter women to feed their ambition. Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. You're exhausted and confused, Mae. What you need is rest, strict rest until the wedding. He gestured sharply. 2 soldiers stepped from the shadows, Holt and Nash rifles slung at the ready. Take Miss Calder to her room. Post guards at her door and beneath her window. She doesn't leave, not for any reason. No, Mae twisted, trying to break away. Flint moved like a striking snake. His hand clamped around her arm, bruising her skin. This can be simple or miserable, he hissed. But one way or another, you will be my wife in 2 weeks. And your Apache lover will be dead long before that. She met his stare with pure loathing. I will never marry you. Never. His cold smile sharpened. We'll see. The soldiers marched her back across the yard, one on either side. Silas Calder stood waiting in the foyer, anger and disappointment warring on his face. You've disgraced yourself and this family, he barked. No, father. Mae answered, tears burning, but her voice steady. You did that when you sided with a man like him. The guards locked her inside her room. Mae collapsed onto her bed, despair unfurling inside her like smoke. She had failed to run, failed to warn Taro. He would come to their meeting place, find nothing, wait for her until dawn. All the while, Flint's men would be hunting him like prey. She pressed her fingers around the stone Taro had given her, its familiar edges the only thing keeping her from unraveling. He was clever. He was cautious. He wouldn't fall easily. But deep down she knew she had set the storm in motion, and now they were both trapped inside it. Taro knelt beside Eagle Creek, trailing his fingers along a boot print left in soft mud. Soldiers, many of them, had passed through here with purpose. He had come to retrieve Mae's note left in their hidden hollow at the base of the ancient cottonwood. It was their lifeline, their unseen thread, when they couldn't meet in person. Tonight the hollow was empty. A cold unease tightened the muscles of his stomach. Mae never missed a message. Never. Something was wrong. A twig cracked somewhere beyond the creek. Taro stilled instantly, the world narrowing to sound and shadow. Another snap, closer now. He melted into the dark behind the cottonwood fingers, sliding silently to the knife at his belt. A figure stepped into view across the water. A woman, older rounder, clothed like a household servant, moving with caution. Hello, she whispered. Is anyone there? I have a message. Taro hesitated, weariness clashing with suspicion. After a long moment, he stepped out from the shadows. Who are you? He asked sharply. The woman jumped, hand flying to her throat. Oh, you must be... Are you Taro? He gave one wary nod. Who's asking? I'm Lona, she whispered nervously. Miss Mae's maid. She twisted her fingers together, shame tightening her voice. I've done something terrible. I broke her trust. But I'm here to make it right if I still can. Taro crossed the shallow creek in 2 quick strides, tension rolling off him like cold steel. Tell me what you mean. Where is Mae, locked in her room? Lona said, tears rising. Captain Flint Rourke. He made me give him the note she wrote you. He threatened to have my boy Eli thrown out of his job at the fort if I refused. I was weak. I'm so sorry. Ice tightened around Taro's heart. What was in the note? That you were in danger. Lona whispered. That soldiers were hunting you. And that she wanted you to meet her in the mountains tomorrow at midnight so you two could run away together. She wiped her cheeks with her apron. But now she's under guard, and the captain has ordered more men into the mountains at first light. Taro absorbed every word, his mind already calculating. Why tell me this? Why risk helping us? Lona lifted her chin with quiet courage. Because I raised Mae Calder since she was 12. Because I've never seen her look at anyone the way she looks when she speaks your name. And because what they're doing to her, forcing her to marry that cruel man, is wrong. Silence stretched between them as Taro weighed choice's danger time. Then he nodded once. Can you carry a message back to her? I think. So Lona whispered. They let me bring her meals. Taro leaned close, voice low and firm. Tell Mae this. Where the rivers meet. 3 days. Wait for the owl's call. Can you remember that? Lona repeated it carefully. Where the rivers meet. 3 days. Wait for the owl's call. I'll tell her. She'll understand, Taro said. He paused, then added quietly, Thank you, Lona. She offered a sad, trembling smile. Be careful, and make her happy if life gives you the chance. She deserves at least that much. And then Taro vanished into the night, moving with the sure-footed silence of someone born to the wild. He had preparations to make supplies to gather, and he would have to stay ahead of soldiers he knew were already hunting him. But first he needed to warn his people. Mae sat at her window as dawn bled over the mountains. Sleep had never come. Her thoughts had circled endlessly around Taro, whether he had found her message or worse, ridden straight into the jaws of Flint Rourke's trap. A soft knock at her door made her straighten. "Who is it? It's Lona, miss. I brought your breakfast." Mae heard the key turn, then Lona entered carrying a tray. The soldier stationed outside glanced in before closing the door again. Lona set the tray down, then unexpectedly grasped Mae's hands. "Eat, miss," she said gently. "You'll need your strength for the journey ahead." Mae stared at her breath, catching. "Journey." Lona leaned in, voice dropping to the faintest whisper. "I saw him last night, your young man. He left a message. Where the rivers meet. 3 days. Wait for the owl's call." Hope surged through Mae so fiercely it almost hurt. "You saw Taro. He's safe." "For now," Lona said, "but you must be ready." Then she straightened, speaking at normal volume again. "Your father says you may join him for dinner tonight, if you're feeling more cooperative." Mae understood instantly. A performance, a dangerous one but necessary. She nodded smoothly. "Tell father I would be delighted to join him, and please extend my apologies to Captain Rourke." "Very good, miss." Lona curtsied and slipped out. Mae ate with real appetite for the first time in days. Taro was alive. He had a plan. And in 3 days, at the place where 2 mountain streams joined to form a single, stronger river, the place that symbolized everything they were, she would meet him. All she had to do now was escape her guards. Simple, she told herself. And then she smiled a hard, determined smile. Not simple at all. But she would do whatever it took. That evening, she joined Mae Calder and Flint Rourke for dinner, playing the role they expected, soft-spoken compliant, apologizing for her earlier distress, blaming it all on pre-wedding nerves. Her father looked relieved enough to collapse. Only Flint watched her with narrowed eyes, suspicion simmering beneath every polite word she spoke. "I believe we ought to move the wedding forward," Flint Rourke remarked as they took coffee in the sitting room. "Next week, rather than 2. Given Miss Calder's delicate mood, a shorter engagement may spare her undue strain." Mae forced a polite smile. "Whatever you think. Best, Captain." Mae Calder frowned, unsettled. "I'm not convinced that's necessary, William. Invitations have already gone out, and Mae seems far steadier this evening." Perhaps Rourke conceded, though his gaze never left Mae. "But I've learned it's unwise to delay once a choice has been made, especially when unpredictable elements are involved." Mae understood the warning perfectly. He didn't trust her quiet compliance, and he was right not to. For the next 2 days, she played her role with flawless grace, discussing wedding arrangements with Lona, penning notes to friends about her joyful engagement, even allowing Rourke to escort her on a tightly supervised walk around the grounds. But beneath her calm exterior, her mind worked with razor-edged purpose. She watched the guards, timed the rotations, studied every possible route of escape. Her window's sentry changed every 6 hours. The guard posted beneath it traded shifts every 4. There was one narrow window just after midnight when both exchanged positions at the same moment. That would be her chance. On the 3rd night, Mae prepared with cold precision. Dark clothing, boots with soft soles, her small bag already packed with essentials, nothing more than she could carry at a run, and most importantly, a rope braided from curtain cords she had quietly cut over the past 2 days. Lona had smuggled in sturdy gloves to spare her palms during the descent. At midnight, Mae secured one end of the rope to her heavy oak bedpost and tugged hard until she was certain it would bear her weight. Then she tossed the rest out the window and watched it unfurl against the wall. It fell short of the ground by several feet. Too late to fix it now. She slipped on, the gloves drew a steadying breath and climbed out onto the narrow ledge. The descent proved far more brutal than she anticipated. The rope tore into her hands even through the gloves. Her arms trembled from the strain. Twice she slipped, catching herself by pure will. At the end of the rope, she dangled for a breathless moment, gauging the drop, then released. She hit the earth hard, her ankle twisting beneath her. Pain lanced up her leg, sharp enough to steal her breath, but she forced herself upright. No time to falter. No time to cry out. She limped through the darkness, staying tight to the fort's shadowed edges. She was nearly to the damaged section of the wall, the one she'd marked during Rourke's walk, when a voice split the night. Prisoners escaped. Check the perimeter. Mae sprinted, ignoring the agony in her ankle. Lanterns flared behind her. Boots thundered against packed dirt. She reached the weakened section of wall, squeezed through the gap in the stakes, and ran. A rifle cracked, splintering wood inches from her head. Mae didn't look back. She bolted toward the tree line, branches clawing her face as she plunged into the forest. They would chase her. They would not catch her. She aimed north by the stars, just as Taro had taught her, then west following the pull of the half-set moon, limping, running, stumbling, but never stopping. She walked until her legs shook. She ran until her lungs burned raw. She climbed until dawn broke pale over the mountain ridge. At last she reached the final ascent toward the valley. She had made it. She had truly escaped. Now she only had to reach their meeting place and wait for Taro's signal, the hoot of an owl, their secret call since childhood. When she crested the ridge, she stopped, breath catching. Below her lay the hidden valley, untouched, sacred, the place where two clear streams joined into a single river, winding through summer-bright meadows. Taro had shown it to her 7 years ago, and in all that time it had been the one place where she could imagine a life beyond the chains society placed around them. She limped down the slope, every step sending bolts of pain through her ankle. By the time she reached the valley floor, the sun rode high overhead. Mae sank down beside the larger stream, sheltered among willow branches. Now there was nothing left to do but wait. The day dragged by in slow, aching hours. She dozed and startled awake, heart thrashing, each time expecting Taro or Rourke's men. But no one came. The silence deepened. The shadows lengthened, and still Mae waited, breath tight with hope and fear intertwined. As night settled in, unease clawed at her chest. What if Taro had already been taken? What if Lona's warning had failed to reach him? What if this entire escape had been nothing more than a carefully laid snare? The darkness thickened around her. Somewhere close, an owl cried out sharp and sudden. And Mae Calder jerked upright, her pulse hammering. Only an owl. Not the sound she was waiting for. Then it came. 3 brief hoots, a pause, then 2 more. The signal they had invented as children. Mae pushed herself up, pain flaring in her swollen ankle, but she ignored it. Coda. She whispered into the trees. A shape peeled itself from the shadows beneath the pines. Coda stepped forward, moonlight revealing his rigid expression. Mae, he said softly. Her name spoken like a prayer finally answered. She rushed into him, arms locking around his neck as he lifted her clear off the ground. For a moment, they simply held each other, breathing the same air, words unnecessary. When he set her down, Taro cupped her face gently. You're here, he said. Did you ever think I wouldn't be, she replied, smiling through tears. Never. He brushed the moisture from her cheek. We can't stop yet. Flint Rourke's men are close. Too close. We keep moving, Mae said. Where north? Wyoming territory first. Maybe farther. Maybe Canada. His eyes darkened. It won't be easy. I don't need easy, she answered. I need you. That earned her a smile, the rare, quiet smile she remembered from long ago back near Eagle Creek. Then we go together. A sharp cracked twig snapping, leaves shifting. Coda shoved Mae behind him, blade flashing into his hand in one smooth motion. Well, now came a voice dripping with mockery. Captain Flint Rourke stepped into the moonlight, pistol raised. How sentimental. Behind him emerged Holt Nash and Colt rifles trained on Taro. "How did you find us?" Mae asked, dread hollowing her voice. Rourke's smile was thin and cruel. "Your maid proved cooperative once we explained the price of loyalty. And I've had this valley watched for days. Your Apache friend isn't nearly as clever as he believes." Koda's grip tightened on his knife, though he knew the truth. Steel was useless against gunfire. "Drop it," Rourke ordered, "or I'll have my men put you down where you stand." "No." Mae stepped beside Koda. "If you touch him, I will never marry you. I'll tell everyone what you did, about the woman you murdered, about how you hunted us for loving each other." Rourke chuckled softly. "And who would believe you, the hysterical daughter of Silas Calder, infatuated with a savage? You'll earn sympathy, perhaps, not justice." Mae felt Taro tense, calculating, searching for any chance. "There must be something you want," she said urgently. "Something other than me." Rourke considered. "Perhaps there is. His life. In exchange for your hand." "No," Koda said quietly. Mae turned to him, eyes desperate. "I won't let you die, and I won't let you be traded," he replied, unwavering. "How moving," Rourke sneered. "But choice is a luxury you no longer possess. Drop the knife." Time slowed. Mae saw Koda's fingers tighten, saw Rourke's hand shift on the trigger. "Wait," Mae cried, stepping forward. "There's something you should know." Rourke raised a brow. "Oh." She drew a breath. "I'm carrying his child." The lie hung between them, reckless, fragile, necessary. Rourke stiffened. Disbelief flickered, followed by revulsion. "You lie." "It's true," Mae said. "Kill him and you'll raise another man's child, an Apache's child." "Is that the future you want?" Rourke's face twisted with fury. "You filthy whore." The pistol swung toward her chest. "I'll kill you both." What followed happened too fast for memory to untangle. Taro surged forward at the exact moment Rourke fired. The bullet meant for Mae slammed into Taro's shoulder, spinning him sideways, but failing to halt the force of his charge. His knife struck Flint Rourke square in the chest just as the captain squeezed off another wild shot. Rourke staggered backward, staring down in stunned disbelief at the knife buried to the hilt. Blood frothed at his lips as he tried to speak, but no words came. Moments later, his knees buckled and he collapsed in the dirt. For a long heartbeat, the clearing froze. The soldiers, Holt, Nash, Colt, and the others, stood rigid with rifles half raised, unsure how to proceed, now that their commander lay dying at their feet. It was Jace Harper who finally broke the silence, stepping forward, with one palm lifted. "Hold your fire," he ordered quietly. "No more killing." Mae dropped beside Taro, who had fallen to one knee, his hand pressed hard against the blood pouring from his shoulder. "How bad is it?" she whispered. "I'll live," he answered, though his face was pale and tight with pain. Harper approached slowly, rifle lowered. "Miss Calder," he said, his tone formal but steady. "You should know. I turned in my report this morning regarding the Apache woman." Mae blinked in confusion. "What does that have to do with us?" "My report stated that Captain Rourke deceived us, fabricated a threat to pursue a personal vendetta." Harper's gaze didn't waver. It also noted that the killing of that woman was done against orders and may be charged as a crime. The realization hit Mae with breathless force. "You're saying—" "I'm saying Rourke's actions were already under review." Harper glanced at the captain's lifeless body. "And now I will report that he died attempting to murder 2 unarmed civilians." Taro rose unsteadily, leaning into Mae for support. "Why risk yourself for us?" he asked. Harper's jaw tightened. "Because I saw a man cradling the woman he loved in a stream turned red with her blood. Because I've witnessed enough senseless death, and because sometimes doing what's right matters more than following a broken order. He turned to his men. We found nothing here. No one. His voice hardened. We return to the fort and report that Captain Rourke was killed by a mountain lion while scouting alone. Is that understood? The soldiers exchanged glances. Some uneasy, others almost relieved, but all eventually nodded. Harper faced Mae and Taro again. You should disappear. The colonel is your father, Miss Calder. He won't easily accept my account and questions will follow. Mae felt her throat tighten. Thank you, she whispered. Harper gave one curt nod before signaling his men. Move out. They slipped away as quietly as they had come, carrying Rourke's body with them. Mae and Taro stood alone beneath the moon, both shaken by what had unfolded. Is it over? Mae asked softly. Truly over. Taro drew her close with his good arm. For now. But we still need to ride. Harper's given us a chance. Let's not waste it. Mae nodded against him. Where do we go? I have horses hidden nearby, he said. We ride north Wyoming first, then wherever the land allows. He gently lifted her chin. Wherever we roam, it'll be side by side. That's all that matters. Mae slipped a hand into her pocket and pulled out the small stone he had given her long ago beside Eagle Creek. Do you remember what you told me? Then she asked, placing it into his palm. Now it's your turn to carry it for the road ahead. Taro closed his fingers around the stone, then lowered his head to kiss her. Soft at first, then deeper, warmer, a promise forged in breath and the moonlight. When they finally parted, he rested his forehead against hers. The journey will be long, he murmured. The trail uncertain. Mae smiled. But we'll face it together. Together, he echoed. Always. As dawn broke over the hidden valley where the rivers joined, they mounted their waiting horses and rode north, leaving behind blood, dust, and every chain that once held them. Ahead lay an unknown frontier. Hard and unyielding perhaps, but faced with linked hands and shared hope. And for now, that was enough. All stories are created for entertainment purposes, and may include fictional elements or dramatized interpretations inspired by historical settings. We use AI tools, voice-over visual scripts, as creative assistants. However, all content is reviewed, refined, and edited by humans to ensure emotional authenticity and storytelling quality. We fully comply with YouTube's policies regarding AI-generated content and do not use any deepfake techniques or misleading recreations of real individuals. All visuals and supporting materials are properly licensed. Sharing, re-uploading, modifying, or distributing any part of this content in any form requires written permission. We appreciate your support and respect for original creative work.